Hello and welcome to the Honeyboat Squash Grow Along. So if you are a fruit and veg mind in bloomer, or you get the mix box, then you have got one of these this month, or a few of these seeds to grow. So the reason I went for this rather than a butternut was because it's a bit different. I like the fact that it's got its own inbuilt kind of best before date, because the stripes fade as it gets, as it ages. So you'll always say you grow, hopefully, if all your seeds germinate, you might have 3 plants. If you've got space to plant all of those, ace. If you haven't, you can give one away to a friend. But each plant should provide you with a few actual fruits. And you will, once they're harvested, you will want to store those, and that's actually a really handy indicator. You're busy, you haven't got time to be like testing them all and seeing which one feels the ripest, and let's be honest, it's a bit of a guessing game. So at least if you've got those green stripes, you're going to see the one that's got the least stripes on it, grab that one, and that's the one that you'll eat first, and then you'll work your way through them. My hope is that you'll get lots of lovely fruits, and they will keep you going through the winter, because squash are brilliant for that, for keeping you going through the winter, because obviously in the winter there's not as much, the garden's not producing as much, so that means that we want to grow some things that we can use to store over winter and eat over winter. So without further ado, I must just say as well, it's a vining variety, a trailing variety, so it will either grow along the ground, or if you've got something to train it up, you can train it up. Just bear in mind that the fruits are obviously going to be relatively heavy. I'm going to plant mine once they've grown on the edge of one of my raised beds. So I'll plant it on the edge with the view to trailing the plant kind of out of the bed and over my patio. Because my patio is quite big, it's got there's a lot of space that I'm kind of not really using there. So that is my plan. You could plant it in a pot, but it would need to be quite a big pot. So obviously if you plant in a pot, you're going to be needing to water it more, whereas if you plant in the ground, it will naturally, it's just got more access to water from the water table and the other soil around it. So just a couple of things to bear in mind. So first things first. We're going to get our coir compost block, and we are going to pop it in the water and watch it grow. Here we go. That might take a little bit of time, so we'll just put that there. The idea with these is that they are really lovingly wrapped for you, and they feel like a real treat each month, because I know as busy women, we don't spend a lot of money on ourselves, especially if we've got kids. That money tends to go on them. And oh, look, can you hear it cracking? It's funny, isn't it? Let's put it there. It's kind of it's expanding on one side, so it's going in this like funny like banana shape. I'll just move it around there. And receiving this box every month is actually a really good excuse to allow yourself to have a bit of time to just a bit of time to yourself, even if it's just 20 minutes and that's all that you can manage. That's fine. But this is a great excuse to have it. And the reason I wrap them, I could just chuck the coir compost block into the box, but I think it's nice to have it all wrapped, and every little part of it feels like a little treat that you're unwrapping there. So you will see here that I have basically made what looks like a really messy brown soup, which is pretty gross. But I probably put a bit too much water in it. It is always quite difficult to judge. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my pots, and I'm basically going to go fishing for compost. So just want to work it through and make sure that there's no lumps left in there. Naturally, there will be a few lumps. That I think there is a bit of stone that's in there. So as you're doing that, just really focus, engage your flots. So you'll feel, listen, observe, taste and smell. I wouldn't recommend tasting this, but we will definitely smell it, see what it smells like. So I'm just going to take a handful. I'm just going to squeeze a bit of the water out. It actually doesn't smell that much. Because this is coir compost and it hasn't got that much organic matter in, It isn't that smelly. If you wanted to, you could always mix a bit of garden soil in with these as well. It's completely up to you. Or if you if you make your own compost, you could mix a bit of that in as well. Now, the reason I'm squeezing the water out is because I don't want this compost to be too wet, because the seeds that I'm going to show you in a bit are flat seeds, and they can quite easily rot if they're sat in water. Now, I'm going to show you a trick to reduce the chance of rotting as I plant them. Squeeze that out, there we go. In there we go. Okay, so you can see they're relatively full there, my pots. We'll just tamp that down a bit. Don't want to fill it up too high, because every time you water, if you put too much in, all the compost will just escape, and it's a mess, and it's just frustrating losing the compost. Now, you will have some compost remaining, and some of the coir compost remaining. You can use that to pot up other seeds if you're sowing other seeds, or if you haven't got anything to sow right now, you can just pop it onto the garden and just let it kind of work its way into the soil, and it'll work its magic. Now, as you can see, I'm absolutely covered here. Just going to use my watering can to wash my hands a bit, because I'm going to get my, actually worked surprisingly well. I'm going to get my seeds now. So what you're going to do now is you're going to tip your seeds out onto your hands. Now, I've got the packet here that I've got them in. I always repackage yours because I think it's nicer to receive that. But you will see there that you've got, I'm going to just do 3 seeds. I'm going to do 1 per pot, because like I said, these are going to get quite big, these plants. And you will see, I always make a real point of looking at them. So are they uniform? Well, they're uniform in colour, but they are a bit different in size. So that is obviously a lot smaller. This one's got a bit of a funny like bow to it. So just really notice what they look like. And then all you're going to do is, I'm going to make a little hole with my finger. I'm going to do that in each of them. And then you're just going to place the seed into the bottom of the hole. But what you're going to make sure you do when you put it in is, you're going to make sure you put it in so the skinny edge is poking upwards. You don't want to lay it flat, because if you lay it flat in the soil, the water will just collect on top of it, and it's more likely to rot. So if you just turn it 90 degrees, put it on its side like that, and nestle it in, you will have a much better success rate with your germination. I'm going to show you that one in a sec. I'll show you this one actually. So hopefully you can see there that it's on its side. And then all you're going to do is, you're just going to brush that compost back over, or you can take some of that and put more in if you want to. It's completely up to you. Right, so there we go. Now, because these guys have the compost is obviously wet, you don't need to water them. In fact, you can see the water already leaching out of the compost around these pots. But you are going to label your put the names on the labels and stick them in. I've forgotten to bring my pen, unorganized. And then these guys, you could grow them outside if you wanted to, because hopefully now in May we won't have too many frosts. But if you want them to get going and get growing a bit quicker, I'd keep them inside on the windowsill, or if you've got a greenhouse with a heat mat, grow them on there. And you will, they'll just germinate a lot quicker. They just have a better head start, basically. And then they will grow and they will fill these pots quite quickly. So you will need to do a bit of mindful potting on, which was the training from the start of May. So last week, no, April, I think was potting on, sorry, mid-April. So go and find out that video. Once you'll start to see the roots come through the bottom of the pot here, and watch that video, get a slightly bigger pot, put them into that bigger pot. I'll show you exactly how to do it on the video, because I did it with another form of squash on the video. And then once they filled that pot and the risk of all frost has passed, that's when they can go out in the garden. They are frost sensitive, so don't try and plant them out before the end of the frosts. Now, Depending on where you are, your last frost date will be different. Mine is usually around mid-May, which is kind of now. And looking at the weather going forwards, we're probably going to be okay. But it has been really, really cold up until now. So I'm a little bit nervous. So what I'm tending to do, if I've grown 3 of something, I might put a couple out, but keep one back just in case. And it is a bit of a juggle and it is a bit of a pain, but I don't, I did leave some of my seedlings out and they just got absolutely frosted, and I was gutted because I'd grown loads of these particular plants that I wanted to grow and have a really nice display. They're an annual climber, and I think I had about 8 plants and I've got 2 left, and they don't look very healthy. So just be really wary of that, especially if you're up north. I know, Sarah, you're in Glasgow, so you're going to be, needing to be aware of the frost for a little while longer. And yeah, just a case of checking them every day, making sure you're keeping them moist, just keeping an eye on them, just doing that mindful check-in, doing it, if you've got them growing inside, whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil in the morning, you can just go and have a little quick look, see how they're getting on, put your finger in, see if they need any water. I'm going to be doing more mindful watering. I don't know, I'm trying to think when that is. That's next month, I think. So how you can make watering your plants more mindful so you can access that calm quicker. And then as they will be thirsty plants because they are growing, big fruits, a lot of which is made up of water. So you will need to continue to water them when they're in the ground, especially if it's wet. If it's dry. If it's wet, you probably won't need to water them as much, but bear in mind that they've got quite big leaves that quite often will cover the ground around where the water, to prevent the water from actually getting to the roots of the plant, which is where it needs to go. So if it really chucks it down, you'll probably be all right, but if it's just a little shower, you might still need to water it. Your fruits are going to be ready when they're about 15 to 20 centimetres long, and a really good way of testing whether the fruit is ready to harvest is to get your fingernail. Now mine are quite short at the minute, but you get your fingernail and you just sort of press it into the rind of the butternut squash, the squash, and if it doesn't go through and the rind is hard, then you're ready to go, you're ready to harvest. If it gets quite late in the season and the rind still isn't hardening, you can cut fruit and you can leave them out in the sun somewhere dry. So if you've got a greenhouse or a sunny windowsill, leave them out in the sun for a few days to what they call cure, which is basically to harden. And then once you've done that, then you can store them for the winter and eat them, throughout the time. They are quite a good size, so they're probably enough for like 2 people as a side dish in a meal, or if you live alone, you can cook it in a oneer and then have some one day and then for lunch the next day. I really like to have squash with like a really nice big green salad and a quiche, and then just like a few slices of squash. Really, really delicious instead of potato. So yeah, I hope that has been useful. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you've got any questions at all, you can pop them straight into the Facebook group with photos if you've got a photo of something that you're asking a question about, or you can send them to me directly. You've got my email addresses. One other thing to mention actually that I didn't mention about the squash plants is if it is quite a wet summer, the plants might get a bit of powdery mildew, which is like a grey mould on the leaves. Don't panic too much about that, but just try and remove the affected leaves if you can, because it will spread to the rest of the plant and it can spoil the fruits. So just keep an eye on that. Again, another really great mindful activity. You've just got 5 minutes and you just need a little bit of headspace. Go and check your squash plants, and all it takes is using your observation skills from plots to just have a look at the leaves, see how they're getting on. Do they look full and healthy and full of water, or do they look like they might need a drink? And in which case you can give them a drink. So it's all about incorporating these things into your day so they don't feel overwhelming, and you just can do them at little times of the day. And if it helps you to keep a list of what mindful gardening jobs you can do, then absolutely do that as well. Anyway, I'm going to go now. Have a lovely rest of the week, and I will hopefully see you next week for mindful planting out. So that is going to be a good one. Make sure you're there. See you later. Bye.